I mean, if Robert Eggers ever gets to watch this, I just want to say that Jamie is one of the nicest people you could ever possibly meet. He's literally the nicest guy in the world. So- Welcome back to Modern Horror Stories podcast with Jamie, Dave, and Rosanna. And yesterday we talked about Nosferatu, directed by Robert Eggers, and we were split on that. Some of us liked it, some of us didn't like it so much. However, today we're going to be talking about how we think we could make this movie better. As always, kudos to the people who did make it. It's certainly a work of art, which some of us appreciate more than others. But with all due respect, we're going to say how we can improve it. So who would like to go first?
I can go fast. So one of my things is what I talked about actually in the other episode, that I also stole from James, is that there was some points in the movie where I just felt a bit disconnected. I was still immersed in it, but there was some parts where I was a little bit out of it. And I think it has to do, like James said, with like uneven dialogue. So it goes in between being like realistic and being very heightened. And I really think I would have preferred if they choose one aspect of it, because it has all these cliches, like the old scary castle and all these like, does evil come from within and everything that Dave talked about. And then I think it's okay to just make it all heightened and like do that, because the original one is heightened as well. But it is like just, again, what James said, sources to your thing, is to mix it up with some like more realist dialogue and stuff that, and I don't think it was the issue of the actors either. Like, I think they were really, really good. I can't really pinpoint exactly what the issue is, but keep it heightened if you're gonna keep it heightened, or keep it realistic. I think. And then my second thing, I have a lot of things, but I'm gonna choose some of them. So one of them, it isn't really like an improvement. It's just a different version of the film that I'd like to see. And that is like, I saw a YouTube video about where they mentioned that some of the Nosferatu remakes, or the original or the 1979 one, are a bit more like focused on the pandemic aspect of it as well. And I kind of think that's like a bit of a missed opportunity, because like, I mean, they didn't have to do it for sure, but it would have been interesting to like go more into that. Like the original, they talked about how the town, like this societal like trauma of a pandemic, how they were like kind of looking for a scapegoat, and they were all like going crazy. And in the 1979 one, they have, if I remember correctly, I think they have like a last feast in the middle of the town where all dead people around and rats around, and it was just like, it would have been interesting to focus a little bit more on that. But that's, I mean, they prefer to like focus maybe on these like repressed desires and on the individuals, and that's okay as well. And that was really interesting to me, but it could have been fun, basically. The other one is what I mentioned before as well, with some of the tempo. Like, for example, when, and I know it is in the original, but when, like I said, Thomas find Ellen dead, and it's just immediately going to crying, like not even a second to like take it all in or anything like that, but just straight up to like, oh, close her eyes, keep dead. Like, yeah, like I said, I think that's a big thing as well. And also one more thing I want to add is, I think, and I don't mind nudity, but I think sometimes there was some like excessive nudity. Like, and I don't know, this depends on if this has to do with like traditional Romanian folklore and stuff like that. But for example, the naked girl on the horse, like stuff like that, I feel like it was just a bit excessive sometimes, necessary sometimes. But I don't know, it's just giving male gaze a little bit, but also this could be rooted in traditions and folklore, and in that case, as long as it's justified, like absolutely, like fine. But yeah.
I didn't get that it was necessary. Like I was watching the original and think, literally at the end, I thought, oh, they did that whole film without any boobs, and it worked really well. And it does make me wonder, like, why is the biting moved from here to here to down in the chest? Is it purely so that we can see, so that the director can focus on her chest for that last scene?
Laura Mulvey is not happy right now.
Pardon?
Laura Mulvey, he's not happy right now.
Who? Sorry, I don't even know who that is. Sorry.
Like, she invented the term like male gaze.
Yeah, it even more feels like it's male gaze when it feels like they've purposely, or he's purposely moved. Like almost every story of a vampire has a bite to the neck as a central feature of it. Sometimes a wrist, but it's mostly neck. It feels like a very specific choice that you only ever bit chests, and that didn't
Exactly.
happen in the original, and it didn't need any nudity at all for the original to work. So
no, and I
yeah,
think
I agree with you.
okay in a like essential scene, whatever. Like I would not have minded it, and I would not have thought about it. It was just, yeah, as it's a little bit excessive.
Yeah. So my improvements, and like as was said earlier, like this is an artwork in its own right, and it has its own value, and some people adore it. So these, what I'm about to say, is not necessarily improvements. They're things that would make a film that I would enjoy more. So yeah, I would change the director. Get a different director. That's the first improvement I would make. And part of that is down to what you were saying, Rosanna, about the like one character has clearly been directed to be melodramatic and quite wooden, and other characters have been directed to be normal people. So it's like or more modern style of acting, I guess. Like there's an older style of acting and a modern style of acting coexisting, and they're not gelling, which I assume must be a directorial choice, because none of these actors are from the 1920s. So it's I'm assuming it's something they've been told to do. And the other thing I would do is change the writer, because the dialogue is terrible. It's so hollow, and there's very little of it, but there's way too much of it, because it just doesn't do anything. None of the dialogue adds anything. It's just noise, really. So those are the two biggest changes I would make, and I think it would create a film that I would enjoy a lot more. I guess it depends who the director and writer are, but yeah. And another thing I would change is, like, give us more with some of the things and give us less with some of the things. So like, I would have liked more time on the boat. You were talking about having more time with the plague. I wanted more time on the boat, like, and all the stuff that was going on there. Like, I thought that was a brilliant source for horror and drama and suspense that was just sort of, it was almost got a montage of it instead of really sitting with the terror of that. So yeah, there's a few other areas where I think just give us a bit more, just so that it's fully fleshed, and give us a bit less so that it's not arbitrary. Those are my three changes.
I think I agree with everything that you both have said. And in terms of the more time on the ship, I really loved the way they did the way they spent the time on the ship in the original.
Yeah.
I thought it was really superb, and it ends up with like the last crew member strapping himself to the wheel, and then Nosferatu is closing in on it, and it just fades to black, and it's so much more tension building than what we saw in the movie. I felt at times that less would have been more. I mean, there was a lot more rats in this version, but rats don't make up for the poor dialogue. You are aware that the writer and the director are the same person?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, if Robert Eggers ever gets to watch this, I just want to say that Jamie is one of the nicest people you could ever possibly meet. He's literally the nicest guy in the world. So, but just to put a bit of balance. However, my three things, I'd spice up the horror a bit. I think I'd have a different Orlok. The first Orlok from 1922 was so iconic, and they could have come up with an iconic image for this one. Could have been a bit different. I think I might have gone for, rather than old and cranky with a moustache, I might have gone a bit more sensual, given the fact they were playing up the kind of sensuality early on. I would have gone for a smooth, silky vampire that maybe even a little bit of CGI to spice it up a bit, rather than this croaky old one.
Yeah.
Um, and I would take a few more risks to go beyond the just remaking it. It feels like there was a couple of changes, and all the changes that were made I didn't like. Um, but it was very, very faithful, and I felt like they could have just, pushed the boat out a bit further, changed the ending. The ending is pretty close to the original, but why not push it out a bit more? And the last one is, I can't be sure about this, but it felt like there was a lot of CGI, and it
There
looks
was no,
amazing. Sorry,
sorry. Actually, there was no CGI.
there was no CGI.
Yeah.
Oh
Sorry.
wow! I mean
Or
that's
did not.
crazy then, because one of the things I was going to say is there needed to be more practical effects, because I just felt it was, I couldn't believe that world. It was dark all the time. It was sepia tinted. It felt like the image had been adjusted so much that it was constantly taking me out of the film. I felt like there should have been more practical effects, and for you to say that all practical effects makes it even worse for me. Everything was so busy. Like when you went to the town, there were people walking left and right, and there were rats all over the place. And I was looking at some of the rats, thinking, I wonder if they're CGI rats, or not. But if they were all real rats, it frustrates me even more. And the original had lots of emptiness and lots of space, and I much preferred that. It felt really crowded. This imagery. I'm stunned that there's no CGI in it. If it was all practical, then yeah, I think maybe in post-production they changed the image a lot. Maybe too much. So what about the whole city? Was that all practical?
The thing I just read that there's no CGI in the movie, but I can't confirm sure, but that's what I read in some article, and it could be wrong, but yeah.
It's possible. It's really possible. But like I say, in that case, then they did something to the image that took me out of it, rather than, yeah. I'm so used to seeing CGI. I was completely bamboozled by this. I want to agree with you about the nudity. It didn't seem necessary in this film. And also, I want to double down on Rosanna talking about the pandemic. Given the situation of us just coming out of COVID and everything, and that kind of mass hysteria, I thought it would have served this film brilliantly if there was a lot more social and political intrigue going on around how the pandemic's handled in that situation. But yeah, they're my three things. Well, apparently one of them, apparently there is no CGI, so I got my wish on that one, but didn't make me any happier.
I agree with the same sensual vampire as well, because I think Bill Skarsgård would have been so good for that. Like he's so he talks so smoothly, and I don't know. I just think he would have been great. I really agree with that.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe Robert Eggers felt it was too cliche because there have been sensual vampires before, but I don't know. That's something that I like about the Bram Stoker's Dracula, the one where Gary Oldman is Dracula. He is both. He's an old creepy guy, and he's also a really sensual, sexy young guy. He's got both sides to him. He's got the animal aspect. He's got all these facets to him, whereas the Nosferatu in this movie is very one-sided, it feels.
So on that note, let us know if you think that we have improved the movie, or maybe we ruined a masterpiece, or maybe you've got ideas to improve Nosferatu 2024, in which case, drop your ideas in the comments below. And we look forward to seeing you next time. James, I can't believe she said change the direction of the writer. That blew me away.
We're gonna get banned from the industry now.
Oh yeah. Oh no.
That would be so amazing if you got to work on a Robert Eggers movie after this. In 5 years' time, he's working on a new movie.